Hello, my name is Codemaster Jamal, and welcome to my devlog. Originally, I was going to be releasing a video about perception and how it affects us differently. However, because I made a statement about how I want to release more quality videos, I'm actually going to wait to release that video until I can find the proper clips to make it a good video. I actually have a 2D animated skit planned for the video, so I would really like to take my time to finish that scene before releasing it. So instead, I'll give you guys a time-lapse video of me texture painting in Blender for my game Virtual Monsters. If you've been watching my devlogs up until this point, you'll know that I've been working on creating a very diverse open world for players to explore. What I've done so far for this open world is create 3 different models of trees, and then create a multitude of different leaf textures for each tree. I also created some grass textures to go with each different zone for the game. However, what I haven't shown or told you guys was that I also plan to do different types of bark for all the trees. So that's what I did this week, was work on expanding my world by creating new bark textures for my trees. I already had a texture I had done, but because I thought the lines I drew were too detailed, I decided to start all over again. Because these devlogs are meant to be educational in some form or another, let's talk about what I learned in a liberal arts math class. In mathematics, there's a way of calculating the different combinations or orders in which a set of data can be organized or can occur. This is known as permutations and combinations. I won't go too far into detail, but today we'll be using the formula for combinations to actually determine how many different configurations we can have in my game. This will only include the trees that can be found in the real world, and won't include any trees that can be found in the virtual world. It's not entirely decided, but I plan on making 3 to 4 different textures for the real world trees. This includes a brown bark that you've already seen on most of my trees, which is the most natural bark there is, but will also include a white and red bark. Upon researching diversity, I found out that most of the wood that you can find in a hardware store is actually stained to be certain colors, and that for the most part, there really isn't that many variations of wood found in the natural world outside of the brown type of wood that you see, typically on trees. That being said, my game already has blue and pink grass, so how much worse can it really get? So up until this point, I only have a brown texture, but I plan on having a brown, white, red, and black texture for all the barks in the game. I'm not entirely too certain if I'm going to keep the black texture until I see how it works in the game, because I feel like it's a little too, underworldish. I might save it for the virtual world, but there's no telling at this point what I'll actually do. The point is, I want to get back to the equation. So this is how the equation works. We have n, which represents a population, or in this case, all the textures we have for the real world. This includes the leaf textures, which is a total of 7, and the 4 possible bark textures, which totals to 11 total textures. Next, we have the R, which represents the subset of N, or sample set. In our case, every tree can only have 2 textures, one for the leaves and one for the bark. So if we plug in these 2 variables into the equation and do the math, we soon discover that we have up to 55 possible combinations for trees in the real world. That's insane! I do believe that's more combinations that I originally planned for the game, and to tell the truth, I really don't think I will need or even use that many different trees inside the game. I'll tell you one thing, this many trees in my game, it will be extremely taxing to anyone's GPU. So in my mind, what's really important for my game is for me to optimize graphics so that this game can load properly on all machines. Because if that's what it's like for the real world, I can't possibly imagine how it's going to be for the virtual world. Now, it's been nearly 2 years since I did any texture painting for my sycamore trees, and let's just say I'm kind of rusty, to the point where I can barely remember how I did it specifically. I think that's why my textures came out looking a little bit different, and my lines are a little bit different than what I did a long time ago. I'm going to go back and practice my texture painting, but I was really in the zone when I started doing texture painting for my game, so it may take a while for me to reproduce anything that's good enough to be considered an asset for my game. What initially inspired me to create this bark was actually the Japanese cherry blossom called Sakura. Even though I believe the wood of those trees are a dark brown, I thought that a white bark would look really nice in combination with pink leaves. And that was the reason why certain areas of my game were pink, was because I wanted to pay homage to the Japanese cherry blossom. This was the original concept I came up with when I thought of the last city in the Junsei region called Granite City. I thought of these floating petals I could create, which would be an epic stage for the final part of the game. After I was done laying down the grains of the tree, I started smudging and then finally airbrushing to hide my mistakes. This is what I came up with. Not bad, but my texture painting could use some work. I think I'm going to go back to this later on in the week and work on something better. I'll also load this texture and the brown sycamore texture into paint.net and mess around with some blending modes in order to create new textures. For now, let's try testing out how this looks in Unity. What I learned from doing this texture painting is that it's rather hard to produce a white wood texture for my trees. I want to add detail to the drawing, but it's really hard to not make your painting look like a drawing on an all white background. The color I use for my lines are a little too dark. In the future, I will use lighter colors and perhaps adopt a different pattern to draw on the bark. I want the grain to be seen, but I don't want it to be obvious that this is a painting. The other bark still manages to maintain that sort of illusion, and I want to keep this consistent within my game. I also tested out the other textures I came up with in paint.net. I would definitely have to go back into Blender and make a texture for each one of these themes, though some of them came out looking rather nice. The red one didn't come out too great, and the inverted one isn't closer to being the color scheme I imagined. However, the black one looks pretty hard, but I know I want to make a uniform and consistent look for my game, so I'll definitely have to go back into Blender and make a texture for that one as well. Well, I wish I could show more, but I kind of put this video together at the last moment. Expect more from me next week. If you still managed to get to the end of this video, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you want to see more from me, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I've got more videos coming out, however, since I'm a one-man team, it's really hard to crank them out once a week. That being said, I'm still trying. I guess this will be all for now. Keep making games. Till next time, this is Codemaster Jamal, and I'm signing out.
Season 2.